Alright y'all, welcome back to Common Arms channel. So today's video is going to be sort of a continuation in the series of me just explaining what my military career has been like so far. So I've already put out the video of why I joined the Marine Corps in the first place and sort of what boot camp was like. So in this video I'm going to be describing what my time was like in Marine Corps Security Forces. And basically what that looks like is it's a 5-year contract. 3 years you're actually doing infantry, but 2 years, the first 2 years you're doing security forces. So you go through the school of infantry or infantry training battalion as you normally would for infantryman. But then after that, if you're security forces, you would go to your follow-on school, which is basic security guard school. After that, you go to whatever unit was designated for you. So you can be in like a guard force unit, which is like guarding submarines and missiles. Or you can be doing something like the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team, the FAST teams. And within those organizations, there's also subunits that you can be a part of. But yeah, I went through, after boot camp, I went through the School of Infantry. That was about 2 months, so I got all my basic infantry training out of the way. I don't know if I'll do a video on that. It's all pretty basic stuff. But then I moved on to my follow-on school, which was a basic security guard school. So this took place in Virginia, which I hadn't been to Virginia before, so I was kind of excited just to go to a new state and everything. But with security forces, when you're actually joining and going through it, you have like no idea what the job actually entails, like the very specifics, unless you know someone who actually works in that field. It's kind of just something that you're doing to get out of the way before you actually go to the infantry. So I didn't really know what possibilities I had actually going into the security forces. Like even when I got to basic security guard school or BSG, once I got to BSG, I still had no idea what was going on. But we started training. I started learning a little bit more about what my job would entail. But basic security guard school was actually kind of fun. I actually had a lot of fun there, mainly because it was near Virginia Beach. And that was just a cool area to go and hang out. We had more freedom than we did, in boot camp and infantry training battalion. So we could go out on the weekend, go to Virginia Beach, have some fun. But the school itself was also like pretty cool. So we were doing like some hand-to-hand combat. We were learning how to do, stuff with a baton, do takedowns with a baton. And then we also did some weapons qualifications, which I didn't expect to do. In School of Infantry, we got to do we qualified with the M249 squad automatic weapon. We did the 240. We did the 203, the grenade launcher. We did the M27. Just grenades and 50 cal and whatnot. So we got to do a bunch of cool weapons in the infantry training battalion. But in BSG, we got to qual with the M1014, which is a semi-automatic shotgun, which I knew about previously just from Call of Duty and whatnot. But I thought that was a really cool shotgun. I thought it was a really cool opportunity that we would get to actually qualify with it. And then we also qualified with the pistol, so the Beretta M9, which I knew about previously, so I was still looking forward to that as well. But all this sort of gave me an opportunity to shine a little bit more. Again, coming out of boot camp and even infantry training battalion, I was a little bit dissatisfied. So whenever there's training that allows me to show that I have more knowledge than a lot of my peers, it was always fun for me, especially when I'm doing shooting and I get to qualify and show that I'm actually like proficient shooter and everything too. But yeah, qualifying with the M1014 and the Beretta M9 was a lot of fun. It wasn't anything crazy. We weren't doing like any crazy drills or anything really fast. It was all marksmanship training, but it was still like really fun. I really enjoyed that part. But overall, BSG I think it was about a month and a half. It wasn't anything crazy. It was kind of just cool training. It wasn't too strict to where it made things like really annoying to deal with. And I met a lot of good friends. I had a lot of friends previously from boot camp and infantry training battalion. So I knew a lot of people there already. But in addition to that, we made some new friends, which is always fun. So BSG was a good time. It's a very fond memory when I think about my early military career. So I don't really have anything too negative to say about that. But coming out of BSG, I was really motivated, especially doing more training that I didn't think I'd get to have. It was definitely fun. And even at the end of basic security guard school, I got promoted to lance corporal, and there was probably about, I would say maybe 10 of like the 50 students there got promoted to lance corporal. So that was exciting. It was cool to be promoted above, a lot of other people. So I was definitely leaving BSG feeling in a good mood and sort of excited to actually get out to, my job and start doing things. So from Virginia, I went down to Georgia, and I was going to be doing guard force stuff. So I was going to be the ones guarding the submarines and doing security for that and everything. So I still didn't know too much about what the job entailed, but I was still excited. It was cool to go into my first actual unit. Again, you get even more freedom here. You can drive around, you can get a car and everything. So I ended up getting a car. I was still with a lot of the friends that I had already known. So it was comfortable for me going with people that I already knew. It's crappy when you have to go to a new place and you don't really know anybody. But going with a lot of your buddies definitely makes it easier. So we started working and everything, doing security, and it wasn't anything bad. I thought it was kind of cool how we had like really cool. They're called Lenco Bearcats, which is kind of like a SWAT truck, and that's what we would use for our security. So that was kind of cool, like introduction, seeing that kind of stuff. And something else I remember is I had an M16, but I had the old M16 M203 combo with like the jungle handguard, like the Vietnam style one. I'll post a picture here. But I was just really excited to get that weapon. So it's just small things. I wasn't really like too overwhelmed with learning the job. It wasn't anything crazy. But actually starting to get in the swing of things, I started getting more and more relaxed. So that was nice. But it got to the point where the guard force was kind of just getting like a little boring. And it might not have seemed boring if there weren't the Recapture tactics team there. So on the installation where you have this submarine base, you have the Recapture tactics team.
So that's basically these guys, and basically what their job is to make sure that if a building gets taken over, if someone goes on the installation and they don't have access, is to make sure that they recapture that building, and also if there's a potential theft of any strategic weapons. It's their job to make sure that they get that stuff back.
There's like a selection process, and you enter that unit, you go to close quarter battle school, which I'll talk about later on, and then you actually get into the unit, you try out again, and then once you're in the unit, you get to wear flight suits. So like everyone knows who's in the Recapture Tactics team, or the RTT. So everyone knows who's in RTT because you see them walking around in flight suits and whatnot. So I thought that was really cool, just seeing them walking around. Knowing that there's a certain selection process to actually get into that. So I really started, thinking about that, thinking if that was like something that I wanted to do. And eventually it was, and, I just got bored of the guard force. So I'm like, I'm still in pretty good shape, so I'll try out for this unit. Now they have something called the spin-up process, which is like the selection process. So that time it was about 3 weeks long. It's kind of just a lot of, that you train with room clearing tactics, but most of it is just physical stuff, just to like slay you. So running with full kit a lot, running with your weapon, just stuff to smoke you and see if you're like resilient and like actually motivated to get onto the unit. And also testing to see if you have like good shooting skills, because in close quarter battle school, like you learn like room clearing tactics proficiently, but you also need to be like a really good shooter. So that's something that they tested before we actually went to the course. But the spin up was awesome. It was definitely something that I wanted to do. It just allowed me to really put forth more effort to show other people that there was still more that I could be doing. So it was definitely something that I needed at that time. So I was loving it. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely something I needed. So at the end of the spin up, I'd say there's probably like 20 or 30 people who showed up. They selected probably 12. So actually I got selected, and I was pumped for that. So I knew I was going to close quarter battle school, which is a really sought after school, especially in that job field. So close quarter battle school is in Virginia. It was actually on the same installation where I went to basic security guard school. because I remember going to basic security guard school and actually seeing the RTT dudes, or the dudes trying out for RTT going through the close quarter battle school. I remember seeing them in their flight suits, and I thought it was just something like really cool and mysterious. So it was really weird to be on the other side of the fence actually going to that course. And it was cool just to go back to the same place that I had fond memories of. And it was going to be a 7-week course, so I could get comfortable again there. But it was cool going with a lot of good buddies that I went through the spin up with. It was a solid bunch of dudes, and we went to Virginia. We were doing our stuff at CQB school. It was a tough course, but we were having a lot of fun. Going back to Virginia Beach and everything too. So what CQB school is, again, it's 7 weeks. The first 3 weeks are like marksmanship style stuff. So training with the M4 rifle and the M9. You have your holster with the M9, and you do a lot of transition style stuff. And the quals were really difficult, but it was definitely the stuff that I was used to doing, mainly from playing airsoft and whatnot. But it was definitely stuff that I really wanted to do. Especially we had like EO techs on our M4s, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And getting to wear a flight suit is so much more comfortable. But it was cool being like actually in that role, having the flight suit, going through that course. And the shooting part was hard for a lot of people, but I had a lot of fun and actually ended up doing really well, to the point where I got the high shooter. So it was the people, the 12 or so that came from Georgia, and then you had another 20 to 25, and about a class of 40-ish coming all to this course. And I actually got the high shooter award, which means I shot the best with the M4, with the EOTech and iron sights, and also with the M9 pistol. So I was psyched about that, to definitely show my abilities a little bit more. And it's not necessarily that I like to show off, but I'm just like really competitive when it comes to shooting especially. Unfortunately, on week 6 of 7, we were going through the house. The last 4 weeks are, room clearing tactics and everything. But we were going through the house, and you use chem lights to mark things as clear. And I put down the wrong color one, because we weren't using real chem lights, we were using like painted sticks. So I'm colorblind, and I put down the wrong color one, and they saw that, so they questioned me about it, and they're like, well, we can't have you in this job field if you're colorblind. So they were gonna send me home, and I was bummed out, because it was like a really fun course. I didn't expect I'd be in a course where I got to use like a ballistic shield and all this breaching equipment, throwing flashbangs and everything, clearing rooms. It was a course, and it was a unit that I really wanted to get into. So I got dropped on week 6. When I got back to Georgia, I looked into this. I'm like, well, no one said that this was a thing before I left. So it turns out it wasn't a thing. So I went back through the RTT spin up, through the selection process again. Instead of this time being 3 weeks, it was 6 weeks. And at this point, like, I was so driven to go back to the school, like nothing was going to stop me. Again, it wasn't like an option for me to just like give up and just stay in the guard force. I was going to go back, especially when I learned that if you're colorblind, you can still be on the team. So I wasn't going to let it bum me out that it was an oversight at the schoolhouse and everything. But I ended up going back. 6 week spin up wasn't anything crazy. I had a lot of experience. I knew what I was doing, and I was motivated. Went back to the course. I ended up getting high shooter again, which was, it was cool, especially because this time we had a Royal Marine Commando come through the course with us. So it was really cool to sort of like have that competition between him and I. But he was a really cool dude. We definitely built like a good friendship going through the course. And we kind of just became buddies. And the course itself was fun. I wasn't gonna get like psyched out or anything about not passing this time. So I went back. I got that high shooter again. It wasn't easy, and it was harder the second time because it was another really good shooter. But I got it the second time, and I was stoked again. And because I got it the second time, they actually gave me an award for coming back to the course and getting high shooter again. It's just something that doesn't really happen, too often. But again, I went through a lot of tough training with a lot of cool dudes, especially the Royal Marine. And at the end of the course, he actually ended up giving me his green beret. And it definitely meant a lot to me, but I didn't really know how much it meant for him to actually give that to me. So it's definitely something that I cherished. I still have it today, of course. But that's definitely one of my fond memories going through CQB school. And also at the end of that CQB school, I got promoted to corporal. So there's a lot of things looking up for me. I got high shooter again. I got a Green Beret from a Royal Marine because he respected me and I respected him, and we had that friendship going on. And I got promoted to corporal. So there was a lot going on. I graduated the school, so at this point nothing was stopping me. So when you get back to Georgia, you're not in RTT yet, even though you've done a selection process and actually passed the course. You need to do something called on-the-job training, which is basically like 2 to 3 weeks, depending, of you just getting like obliterated with learning like how the unit actually does stuff. But it's not just you learning how the unit actually does their tactics and does everything. You need to remember so many different things. You need to remember layouts. You need to remember tactics. You need to remember like a brief verbatim. So you just get slammed with all of this. So the second group, I think we went through CQB school with about 13, came back to do the on-the-job training. We had about 9 at that point, 9 who graduated CQB school, going through the on-the-job training for RTT. Now, once we did that, we actually lost three dudes. They were just like too stressed out. They were too overwhelmed after going through the spin up in CQB school and then having to do this on-the-job training, which was worse than the spin up and worse than CQB school physically. It was much harder. It was just too much for them, so they just ended up packing their bags and going back to the guard force. But again, for me, it wasn't really an option. Like, it was just something that I had to do. But again, it was brutal because you're doing a lot of running. You're going up and down hills with all of your kit, all of your weapons, everything, even your ammunition. But you also have breaching gear. Sometimes a giant buzzsaw, and you'd have to run with that thing. So it was mentally overwhelming, but it was also physically overwhelming. So it was just a lot for people to handle. But I pushed through it. At the end of it, I was drained, but I got my patch, which is what you earn when you actually get on the team. It's the patch you put on your kit and your flight suit. But we pushed through it. I think it was me and like 5 or 6 other guys. Pushed through it, got our patches, and at that point it was like 11 o'clock at night when we got it, or even it was like 2 in the morning. So you're tired. A lot of dudes are emotional. You're drained physically from doing all of this work leading up to this. So at this point, a lot of dudes, I think maybe like half the dudes there were crying when they got their patches. And again, for me, it was definitely emotional for me, and it definitely meant a lot more than just becoming a Marine. But I didn't cry because it's something that I knew I earned. It's something that I knew that I deserved because I was working for this. I was working all this time to get it, especially after coming back from CQB school and going back. There was nothing that was going to stop me at that point. But at this point, I didn't feel that dissatisfaction that I had when I joined the Marines and earned my Eagle Globe and Anchor. I was like totally satisfied. I knew this is definitely where I needed to be. It was definitely something that I was super thankful for, something that I would never regret. Getting on that team was the best thing that happened to me in my Marine Corps career for sure. Because not only was I with a lot of solid dudes who wanted to be in that unit because they wanted to do something different. They wanted to do something harder and challenge themselves. So everyone wanted to be there, and at the same time, the job was just more relaxing. It wasn't just monotonous, guard force stuff. It was, a tactical unit, a CQB unit. So we did cool training. There was a lot of cool dudes. We would chill out, and I was that dude walking around in the flight suit now. So I was like the one of the golden boys of the battalion, is what they said. So it was cool just to wear that flight suit, walk around, and just feel that pride in the unit. And there was a lot of pride in the unit because, again, when you have a selection process, it really does bring the best out of everyone and makes the best units because you have the most camaraderie, you have the most discipline, and that overall pride just makes it so worth it. But that's pretty much what my security forces career was like. So base security guard school, guard force, and then on the recapture tactics team. So guard force was about a year long, and then the RTT was where I finished out the rest of my 2 years. So I was so happy I did the RTT. Again, it was definitely something I needed at that point, especially, you know, that young in my career still. So definitely something I would never regret. And even now, that's probably still my most favorite unit to be a part of, the Recapture Tactics team. Because again, a lot of solid dudes, everyone wanted to be there, and just the pride and respect that we all gave each other, and just the feeling of belonging is what we all had there. You know, that truly was what I envisioned the Marine Corps to be like. You know, physically fit, mentally resilient, you know, motivated individuals who cared about their job, passionate about their job, and, you know, they all wanted to be there. So that was what my vision of the Marine Corps was before I joined, and that's where I really felt that satisfaction of being a Marine and being in the Marine Corps. But yeah, that's pretty much what my security forces career was like. After that, I moved on to, you know, normal infantry, and that was cool too. I could do a video about that later potentially, but just that being like the early years of my Marine Corps career, and just the you know, devotion to actually get through the course, get in that unit. You know, it's definitely something I think fondly of when I think back of my early Marine Corps career. But yeah, that's about it for this video. A little bit heavier than the last video, mainly just because I'm just way more passionate about my years in security forces more than anything else in my military career that I can say so far. But yeah, I'll try and keep the videos coming. I don't know what the next video will be in this little series. I might talk about the Army. I might talk about my time in the infantry. So just stay tuned, and we'll see. I'll try and keep you guys posted on the community board, if anything. But again, I really appreciate the support. You know, it's support that I never thought I'd have, especially from service members, you know, past and present, even service members, you know, from different countries. It's stuff that I never thought I would be exposed to as much. There's a connection that I never thought I would have, you know, between me and other service members. So it's definitely a mutual respect that I have for all of y'all. So again, I appreciate the support. I'll try and keep the videos coming pretty regularly, maybe like every five days or so, depending on how work's looking. But yeah, I appreciate you guys commenting, liking, and subscribing, and hopefully together we can make this channel, you know, something greater than I've ever pictured it could be. So again, I appreciate it, y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next video.